Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I want to run through a quick checklist that you can use to make sure that your kick and bass is ready for release. As you can see, here we are in the project. I've just loaded one of my kick samples from my drum pack, as well as a bass preset that I tend to use. This is a preset that I made for my M Sound Factory patch. For those that don't know, I made my own bass synthesis instrument kind of thing, and I've been using this ever since for my bass lines. Now there's really three things that we have to check all the time before we actually go into the final process of delivering our final track. We have to check the cleanliness of the kick and bass, we have to check the phase alignment of the kick and bass, and we have to check the tonality of the kick and bass. And let's start with that last one. The tonality of the kick and bass refers to how the kick and bass works with the rest of the track. For example, somebody recently submitted a track to my Discord for feedback and their kick and bass sounded very, very aggressive. I can give you kind of an example of that if I open up my bass patch and just set the phasing almost all the way up, something like this. This kind of aggressive, dark, lasery sounding bass line. You can hear that kind of deep, long pluck that you get. Now actually the kick and bass sounded really good, but all of the other elements in the track were very light and bright and overall sounded very happy, melodic, that kind of thing. It didn't really scream aggressive track to me. Obviously that's combined with a very aggressive kick and bass sounds a little bit off. In that case, you would much rather go for much less processed kick and bass, something like this maybe. Personally, I'm a fan of halfway in between usually, around 60 is kind of the percentage that I like. And to me that sounds aggressive enough for aggressive parts, and if I still want to have some melodic parts or some lusher parts or just some friendlier sounding parts. Now next up we have to check the phase alignment and the cleanliness, and really this is a check that you can do in one go for both of them. So I've opened up a waveform analyzer or an oscilloscope. This is Psyscope and it's tied to the beat, which is really easy. And what we need to check is first of all the phase alignment, which you do by looking at this part of the kick and bass here, but essentially the start right here. And what you want is you want this sine wave to kind of continue into the part where the bass plays. For those that don't know, your first bass note is going to be playing here, because it's this bass note right down below here. And you'll see without the bass note that the kicks looks a little bit different. What you don't see at this part where the bass note starts to play is that the waveform isn't going all kind of crazy. It's still following that sine wave trajectory that we see. It's just being pushed around a little bit. And part of this has to do with just the overall volume that you set for this rolling bass note right here. And the other part is phase alignment. Now I've made a separate video on kick and bass alignment, so I'm not going to go into the details here. But in that video I explain everything about the problem that you may encounter, how you can fix it, as well as my own personal workflow. The second thing to check is the cleanliness, and this has to do with transients. What you'll find sometimes for your bass line is that this transient gets kind of pushed around with the waveform that comes before. The easiest way to demonstrate that is just to load up an EQ on your clean bass and just high pass your kick and bass a few times, like this. Now you'll see the effect that this has on the waveform. You can see that this oscillation kind of continues up until, I would say, like right here. And we can see that the same thing is true for the kick. We can see this oscillation right here, kind of slightly continuing and really kind of stopping in here. It is pushing the waveform of the kick around a little bit. Now you can imagine with a waveform that looks like this that you lose a lot of definition in the transients, especially if you start to clip the transients or if you start to limit them. And what some people don't know is that this problem is massively exaggerated on PA systems. So if your music ever gets played on a festival system, you definitely want to make sure that your kick and bass is clean. And again, I've done a separate video on cleaning up your kick and bass, how you exactly diagnose the problems, what all of the problems can be, and how you fix all of them. The short answer is that you need to resample your bass line most of the time. And after you have resampled your kick and bass, you don't want to do any filtering or processing, including multiband processing, on your kick and bass. And this is also true for things like high passing your master channel. You really don't want to do that. So that's going to be it for today. Just a little checklist that you can use to make sure that everything is okay with your kick and bass. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by leaving a like. And if you're new here, make sure that you're subscribed. But that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed and hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.
In a very deep and bitter sense.